After years of speculation, whispers, and silent glances caught by watchful cameras, Jung Hae finally broke her silence. The actress, known for her warm smile and her ability to light up even the quietest screen, sat across from the interviewer in a soft cream blouse, her hair falling loosely around her shoulders, and for the first time in her long and storied career, she spoke, not about the role, not about a drama, but about the most private chapter of her life, her baby with Jung Hae in. "It still feels strange saying it out loud," she admitted, a small laugh breaking through the obvious nervousness, "but also wonderful. Our baby is the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to us." Her confession comes after years of keeping her personal life fiercely guarded. Both she and Jung Hae built their careers on charm, talent, and quiet professionalism, rarely engaging in the noisy spectacle of celebrity romances that often play out in the media. But behind the careful curtain, a story of love, secrecy, and ultimately, joy had been unfolding. They met, by all accounts, on the set of a quiet romantic drama, a project that required subtlety and emotional nuance. On screen, their chemistry was palpable. Audiences commented on the way her gaze softened whenever he spoke, and how his shy smile seemed to brighten whenever she entered the frame. But at the time, both dismissed the growing rumors with the kind of measured statements expected of public figures. "We're just colleagues. We're focused on our work." Yet even back then, those close to them suspected otherwise. One of her longtime stylists, who asked not to be named, remembers the early days clearly. "She would come back from set glowing in a way you could fake. I've worked with her for years, and I could see it. She was falling in love." For months, they kept it hidden, retreating into stolen moments during breaks. Had conversations over coffee, the kind of quiet intimacy two people can share even in crowded rooms. The media's eye is relentless, and soon there were photos, blurry shots of the pair walking together late at night, a candid snap of them sharing an umbrella under the rain, grainy images of hands almost, but not quite, touching. Still, they remained silent. "I think we both felt protective," so Minutes reflected. "Not because we were ashamed, but because we wanted it to be ours, just ours, for a little while longer." The decision to keep the relationship private wasn't easy. The pressure of fame loomed large, and the anxiety of exposure was constant. There were nights she cried, she admits now, wondering if their love could withstand the scrutiny. But through it all, they chose each other. And then, as if life itself decided to test the strength of their bond, came the moment that changed everything. She remembers the day vividly. She was in the middle of filming a particularly grueling scene when she began feeling lightheaded and nauseous, at first dismissing it as exhaustion. But something inside her whispered otherwise. The next morning, she stood in her bathroom, doing a pregnancy test, her hands trembling as she watched the faint pink lines appear. "I just couldn't believe it," she said softly. "I must have stared at it for 15 minutes." When she called Hae in to tell him, he was silent at first, then laughed, a laugh so full of surprise and joy it brought her to tears. He kept saying, "Really? Are you sure? Really?" she recalled, smiling through her own tears. "And then he told me, 'You've just made me the happiest man alive.'" From that moment, everything changed. The fear of being discovered was replaced by a deeper, more profound fear, of not being enough, of making mistakes, of whether they were ready. But alongside that fear bloomed a happiness so pure it startled them both. They began quietly preparing for the baby. Accompanied her to doctor's appointments, disguising himself under baseball caps and oversized jackets. Together they decorated a small nursery in her apartment, painting the walls a soft pastel blue and carefully arranging stuffed animals and tiny onesies in neat rows. "We argued about the name," she admitted with a laugh. "Wanted something traditional. He wanted something modern. In the end, we compromised. The name we chose means light because that's what he brought into our lives." As her belly grew, so too did their determination to keep the secret just a little longer. But hiding a pregnancy wasn't easy. Times she had to adjust her filming schedule, cancel appearances, and endure the speculation of fans and reporters who wondered why she looked tired or wore looser clothes. "I hated lying," she confessed. "But at the same time, I wasn't ready to share that part of my life. Felt too precious. When the time finally came to tell their families, both sets of parents were shocked at first, but soon overjoyed. Her mother wept openly, hugging her so tightly she could barely breathe. His father, normally reserved, quietly slipped an envelope into his son's hand, with the note inside that simply read, "For the new chapter." Yet, despite the support of family and close friends, there were still moments of doubt. There were nights when I'd lie awake, wondering how people would react. She admitted, would they judge us? Would they think less of me? But in the end, they decided together that the time had come. The baby was born healthy and strong, and as she held him in her arms, feeling his tiny heartbeat against hers, everything else fell away. I realized, she said, her voice breaking slightly, that it didn't matter what anyone thought. This little person, he's ours. And he's perfect. With that, she finally felt ready to let the world in. "I want people to know that this isn't a scandal," she said firmly. "It's love. It's joy. I wouldn't trade it for anything." The first time she heard him cry, she thought her heart would burst. The delivery room was bathed in soft light, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Then, in one breathless instant, the world shifted. Her baby boy arrived with a wail so fierce it brought tears to everyone's eyes. "I couldn't stop crying," she remembered, hands unconsciously clutching at her chest as if she could still feel that moment. All the fear, all the exhaustion, it melted away. He was here, and he was beautiful. Jung Hae stood beside her, his normally composed face streaked with tears as he stared down at the tiny bundle swaddled in a white hospital blanket. "I kept thinking, he's so small. How can something so small make me feel this much?" He later admitted. From that moment, everything changed. Daily lives, once dictated by filming schedules, glamorous events, and sleepless nights on set, were now filled with diaper changes, bottle feedings, and late-night lullabies. She described their new routine with equal parts humor and awe. "I used to measure my days by scripts and call times," she said, smiling softly. "Now it's by feedings and nap schedules. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way." The first few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and quiet discoveries. He learned to distinguish between his cries, the soft whimper that meant he was hungry, the sharp cry that meant he needed comfort. She marveled at how his tiny fingers would curl around hers, how his eyes, so impossibly big and curious, would follow her every movement. He, too, threw himself into fatherhood with unexpected devotion. Despite his packed schedule, insisted on being present for every milestone, changing diapers, rocking him to sleep, even learning to swaddle with surprising proficiency. "He's actually better at calming him down than I am," she admitted with a laugh. "Times I'll be ready to cry myself, and he'll just pick him up and hum, and the baby settles right down." Their apartment, once quiet and impeccably tidy, became a warm, chaotic sanctuary of baby blankets, toys, and soft lullabies. They hung fairy lights in the nursery and filled the shelves with books and keepsakes. Yet, for all the sweetness, challenges, nights where the baby refused to sleep, moments of doubt when she questioned if she was doing everything wrong, times when exhaustion made even the smallest arguments feel monumental. "There were nights I felt like I was failing," she confessed quietly. "Then I'd look at him sleeping in his crib, and I'd realize, he doesn't care if I'm perfect, he just needs me to love him." In many ways, the baby strengthened their bond. Once they might have let disagreements fester, now found themselves leaning on each other, learning to communicate better, to forgive faster. "There's something about seeing her as a mother," he shared in a rare statement. "It made me fall in love with her all over again. The way she holds him, the way she sings to him in the middle of the night. It's incredible." They even found time to laugh, at the baby's funny expressions, at their own clumsy attempts to parent, at the way they'd sometimes collapse onto the couch at the end of the day, utterly spent but profoundly happy. For so minutes, motherhood changed her perspective in ways she couldn't have imagined. "I used to think success meant awards, ratings, critical acclaim," she reflected. "But now, if at the end of the day he's healthy and smiling, that feels like the greatest success of all." Fans, when she finally shared the news, were overwhelmingly supportive. Social media was flooded with congratulatory messages, fan art of the family, even letters from mothers who shared their own stories of joy and struggle. One particularly touching note came from a young mother who wrote, "Thank you for showing us that it's okay to choose love, that it's okay to be happy." Looking ahead, both she and he are cautious but hopeful about the future. They plan to continue working, though perhaps at a slower pace, choosing projects more carefully to allow time for their growing family. And asked about their dreams for their son, her eyes lit up. "We want him to grow up kind," she said simply, "to know he's loved, to understand that he doesn't have to be perfect, just happy." She paused, then added with a soft laugh, "and maybe to stay away from the entertainment industry." It's a little too crazy here. As the interview drew to a close, she offered one final thought. "I thought I knew what happiness was," she said quietly, "but then he came along, and now I understand. This is what life is about. Loving someone so much it scares you, and being loved in return." With that, she stood up, adjusted her blouse, and walked out into the sunlight. Jung Hae waited with their son in his arms, and for the first time, they let the world